No one in this world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. This you can trust.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Glory of Golden State Gaming. I'm your host, Swamp Swimmer, and with me as always, the poutine to my chili cheese fries, Vespacian.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I got to. I'll do my quick wrap. I've got the Team Belgium shirt. I had I think on the forums maybe I think his screen name is Chosen of Sigmar, but came up and fan of the channel, and so we swapped shirts. So here you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Before we get to your matchup, I have a little announcement. This weekend, in approximately a couple hours from filming this, I'll be heading up to the Great White North to London, Ontario, to go to the Forest City Fracas. And to be honest, you went, when you went to ETC, is that your first international 9th Age tournament?
Yes.
Yeah. So I felt a little jealous, so now I'm going to my first international 9th Age tournament. Have to follow up. And I was thinking, I want to get from you your best piece of recommendation for traveling internationally for 9th Age.
Just be really nice to the people that open up your army case and look at it.
When you went to ETC, did you get stopped with your army in the airport?
Always on the way home. I never get stopped on the way out. It's a weird coincidence, but on the way home in the Netherlands, very nice woman. You kind of see that look on their face because you can kind of tell that they're like, what the fuck is this? And so she comes up, she's a little smirk on her face, and she's like, I'm gonna need to ask you to open this up. So I did, and she's like, what is this? Anyway, just be nice.
I'm just a little worried about it because I've traveled numerous times for 9th Age tournaments, and flying specifically, and I have never been stopped with my army. Never, ever, ever.
That's amazing. Really?
So
okay.
I'm worried about going over the border. It's like, are they gonna freak out about all these metal little pieces in this bag I'm carrying with like metal plates for my movement trays? Like, it's gonna be a problem.
I've been stopped many times. I don't know. Although I do have that. I have that like case that kind of looks a little bit like a gun case. It has like the metal siding and stuff like that. So that I've always assumed that's why I get stopped, because of the way the case looks. Yeah.
All right. Well, be nice to the security people, because you look like a danger, but you're really not going through airport security. But anyway, we're on to the final round, round 6 of ETC 2023. Your final game of ETC. USA is not quite where you want to be at this point. You're kind of very much middle of the pack, maybe middle lower of the pack. But hey, it's time to have fun. And you guys get paired into Australia, and you get paired into Frederick, who's not Australian, right?
No, German and the TO. So big shout out to Frederick. I think from prior videos, but extremely well run tournament, and did a very masterful and professional job on the tournament running. So thanks, Frederick.
Excellent. This is going to be Counter Thrust Capture the Flags. If you are interested in Vespacian's list, please click the link right above my head. We go over his list in a little more detail in the round 1 scrimmage game, or the scrimmage round 1 game. But let's look what Frederick is bringing. Dread Elves. Beastmaster on a dragon. Interesting. Selexian Officer on a Manticore. BSB, Basalt Infusion, Lance, Talisman of Shielding. Another Officer General also on Manticore with the Death Cheater Transcendence. 2x15 auxiliaries. 3x5 Shadow Riders. 3 Gorgons. 5 Dread Knights with lances, and then 3x3 Thunder Pack. This is a spam list, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah, so very very strong push list, right? You know, lots of threats. You know, the Thunder Pack, the the two officers on Manticore, and the Dragon, as well as the Gorgons. Lots of threats. Very fast moving, right? I think everything is swift stride. You know, movement 6+, right? So does that very well. No magic. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. No
interest.
magic at all.
I think Australia was interesting. I think they had like 4 to 5 of their lists had no magic.
Oh
And
yeah.
then
I
it
remember.
was,
I
it's kind of,
remember going over the lists, and Australia had all those crazy, wacky, completely different lists.
yeah. So it was so interesting one. This was a we'll talk a little bit about the ratings for the team, but this was one that I would have loved to have played this list in almost any mission except for flags.
Yeah.
You know, this list, it covers the board extremely well. It moves fast. Very difficult to protect my scoring units from this list, unfortunately. So that was a little bit of a downside. And I think if you want to bring up the pairing stuff.
Quick look at those cards again. They got some nice cards also. I do like those.
Yeah, I did want to give a bit of a shout out because I believe they hand drew their cards, and they were beautiful. Whoever did it, I don't know who it was, but really, really nice. And yeah, you can see kind of drew all these really cool. I'm not sure what the style is exactly. I'm not, but it's very neat.
It's like block print like style. That's really awesome. Shout out to those. That's freaking cool.
Yeah.
Yes, the matchup here. We got 2 reds, a 7 and an 8, and then 2 yellows, and the rest of the greens.
Yeah, I think, Australia had some very polarizing lists. So this was one of those matrices that we went into knowing that there were going to be some tough matchups. But, you can kind of see on the flip side of the spectrum, we've got, 3 1s and 2s greens, right? My rating, I talked a bit with my coach about this, and this is I don't love these sort of situations, but I think that this is a matchup that depends a lot on who goes first. Because, essentially, with this guy's list, and how fast moving it is, if he goes first, he's just going to rush me, obviously. And counter deploy has very limited value because essentially I corner one side or the other and he just pushes everything forward, right? So, and then also with counter thrusts where, it means I have to do 3 dead drops, right? And he gives away very little with his deployment.
Yeah.
I actually think this makes this matchup much more stable if I can win first turn, but if he wins first turn, I actually think it moves it down to an orange. I rate it as a yellow because obviously you can't say, well, if I win first turn, then this is an orange. So it's hard to represent in the matrix. But I listed it as a pretty unstable yellow. I guess you'd see that as a 5, right? So, so that was my thought.
That's a fair matchup. That makes sense because you're right. It really does come down to that first turn. First image here. This is deployment and Vanguard. Off the top of your head, do you remember Magic?
Well, he didn't have any, and I had, yeah. And I definitely took Perception of Strength, Ice and Fire, and Hereditary. I want to say, I did. This was one of the few games where I believe I took Truth of Time to slow him down, right?
That makes
and I think I may have taken and Heal. So Perception, Ice and Fire, Heal, and Truth of Time with the Hereditary. And unfortunately, as you can probably guess here, he did win the role to go first, or lost the deployment role. And this was a not a great map for that. That hill in the center of the table is a huge advantage for him, right? Because he's basically, it makes that entire kind of 2/3, at least half of the board on the left, a bit tough for me because launching charges off that hill is pretty rough for my strategy. So you can see with vanguards, essentially what I do is he pushed me back in the in kind of in the center. You know, if you look in the spot where I think in front of his manticore essentially, and next to the impassable there, I think that's where his shadow riders were maybe, and either way he kind of centrally had a unit of shadow riders that he dropped.
Oh, right here. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. There you go. And then I'm pretty sure I put my lancers up on the right as one of my drops over there. Or maybe the reavers on the left, reaver chariots on the left, one or the other. Oh no, my reavers in the center on the right. Sorry, you can see them now vanguarded up. So basically, when he dropped that in the center, I wanted to be able to push him back from the impassable as much as possible, because I'm fairly sure, based on the way that the table is going to play out, that I'm going to drop heavy on the right.
Yeah.
Right. Because I can't work off that hill. If he can jump on that hill first turn and push into me, it's pretty rough. So I did that. So then my left to right, you can see my one thing I will comment. He had this great. He kind of used the Ideneth Deepkin.
I was noticing those models. They're freaking awesome.
Yeah.
The sharks.
Yeah. So he did this whole underwater theme basically with the thunder packs or bull sharks. He's got the big character guy on the dragon. He's got the two guys riding the sharks as the manticores. Really cool theme. The Gorgons are some other mermaidy looking thing. So, and then the rest of the stuff is pretty normal Dread Elfy stuff, but the rest would have that cool theme. So I kudos to him. I like that theme a lot.
That's awesome.
So left to right, I've got my Reaver Chariots and one of my Phoenixes, and my thought here was basically, I know he's going to sweep towards the rest of my army, right? I've got all my scoring over there, all my points, but I want to use the Reaver Chariots and the Flame Phoenixes to make that a bit painful. I also noticed that he had he had two scoring units over on the left hand side with the Dread Knights and the auxiliaries. So if he pushes all of his heavy combat units out towards the rest of my force, I could potentially Fire Phoenix and Reaver Chariots could pick up a couple scoring units and maybe keep me in the game on the objective. So that was my thinking over there. I've got my Grey Watchers. That was probably another one of my. Oh no, I put the Grey Watchers there because I figured they could be a chaff. He's got two of those Thunder Pack units that don't fly, right? So could be a good option if they push up on the hill. The Grey Watchers could push up and chaff, right? Yeah. And kind of delay his lines. I've got the 3 bolt throwers put along the center there, and again, I think I misdeployed the at least the left hand bolt thrower. Given I know he's going to be sweeping. Basically, I know he's going to be sweeping across. I might as well not give him something to kill on the way, right? So I think that if I had just essentially moved all 3 of those bolt throwers down, 12 inches to the right, I think I could have achieved the same thing and kept them shooting for much longer. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. I've got the Griffin Central. Basically, I want to make him think twice about charging up onto that or putting up onto that hill. With the dragon, for example, things like that. And then similar thing with the Lion Chariot. I just want to make it painful for him if he's going to try to push heavy forward. Because of the way that I had kind of pushed up on the right-hand side, he basically didn't deploy anything over there. So I've got my 2 Sea Guard units, my Archer unit, my Lancers, my Mage, and my other Flame Phoenixes there next to the Lion Chariot Prince on the base there. So that's how I deployed. This was in reaction to him, where he basically did what I thought. He just spread across the entire board. He's got, from left to right, he's got his Dread Knights over next to the lake and kind of on the left there. He's got an auxiliary unit, Thunder Pack, Dragon, Thunder Pack. You can see his vanguarded Shadow Riders there. one of his manticores. I can't for the life of me remember. I think the one in the middle is the general, and the one, yeah, it's got that flag. The one in the middle is the general, and the one on the right is the BSB with the flag. And then he's got the other auxiliary unit, the other Thunderpack unit, and the Gorgons there. And then he's got the one thing he put over on the right was a Shadow Rider unit, I think, just to harass me. So, so then we can move on. I think we have bottom of 1 as the next picture, I think.
I'm pretty sure, but yeah, this is bottom of 1 movement.
Yeah, so his movement was very complicated because he has so many single models and things to watch out for. So I actually found myself kind of quite proactively involved in his movement phase. We were checking lots of angles and things like that, just trying to make it efficient. So he basically did the full court press, you can see. And I think a little bit of a misdeploy on my Reaver chariots. I believe they were one of my earlier drops, and they were in range of his auxiliaries to move up and shoot at them. So I did lose one, as a result of that. Also took a little bit of fire on the Grey Watchers in the center. Lost a couple of guys from that. And then he essentially moved forward. Moved forward max. Sorry, I got to plug a thing in here 1 second. Essentially, he moved forward max over on the left, a little bit more tentative in the center for obvious reasons. He was cautious about getting the manticores in charge range of either of my princes, which makes total sense. And advanced pretty tentatively, but he's moved his big assets of the 2 manticores over to my right, his left, right, and basically looking to make a push into that.
Yeah. One's there, where all the BSBs over there. Yeah.
So then in my turn, my reaction, I pull the 2 princes back, right, and essentially what they're doing is they're trying to zone that entire kind of crescent over on the left, just make it painful for him to move forward, and essentially just takes the hill completely out of play. He has no charges from that hill, essentially. This is another time where I fail discipline 10 march block check with the Flame Phoenix. Unfortunately, he had moved on the left hand side. He had moved up one of his Shadow Rider units, and I was able to. He moved it up very close to the Flame Phoenix, but out of charge arc. I was able to flame him, but not get very far back as a result. So I ended up putting the Flame Phoenix there. This was a mistake you'll see in the next picture for a few reasons, but he put the Flame Phoenix over there. I did kill that Shadow Rider unit, which was good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just kind of reshuffling, I start kind of pulling back on the right-hand side, which was inevitable. I'll get back into that corner. And then we go into my shooting and magic phase. He stops ice and fire for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I think I put it on the Gorgons if I want to, because that's a very strong spell against them. But he does let through Truth of Time debuff, I think, on the Manticore that's closest to my lines, which I was pretty happy with. That kind of helps control that model quite a bit. Then in the shooting phase, I managed to, with all of my Seaguard and Archers and Reavers and everything, kill off the Shadow Riders over on the right-hand side. I really wanted to focus on that. I had already killed off the ones on the left-hand side. But then I shoot the Grey Watchers. Let me think about this. The Grey Watchers, actually 2 bolt throwers, and the remaining Grey Watchers at the Shadow Riders that are directly in front of the Grey Watchers there that I had chaffed, at least partially. And I made maybe a little bit of a risky decision, but it ultimately ended up being a poor one. In that he did have his Dread Riders, his Raptor Riders over on the left-hand side within range and line of sight of one of my bolt throwers. And so I took the opportunity, if I do 2 wounds, panic check, they were in a position to run off the board, which would have been incredible. I shoot at them. I think I only do 1 or maybe none.
Yeah.
I do think it was worth the risk, but I pay for it pretty heavily because the 2 bolt throwers at close range and the 3 Grey Watchers only managed to kill 4 of those Shadow Riders there.
Oh,
And
where did the lone guy end up?
Unshaft, of course. And I think that was just bad. That was just, I guess I should have shot at them with the other bolt thrower ultimately, but I thought, 12 shots on 3s and wounding on 3s and everything would have been enough, but wasn't. And that champion will come back and bite me multiple times through the rest of this game because he did bite champs for all those units. So then we can go on to the bottom of 2. Yeah, so you can see now the mistake with the frost or the flame phoenix over on the left. So he gets the charge. It wasn't super close. I think he needed like a 9 or a 10, but he gets the charge with the dragon into the bolt thrower, and he's able to curve and position so that he overruns into the flame phoenix. Just dumb positioning on my part. I should have kept the flame phoenix out. But I was just trying to do too much and I didn't see that until too late. So mistake that I'll end up paying for, obviously, with the Phoenix and the bolt thrower. But again, bolt thrower should have never been there. Like there's no reason to give him points on the way in his journey, right?
And here's that single model you were talking about on the
Yeah, even worse. He charged. If you go back, you can see how it worked out. He actually charges the bolt thrower over on the furthest right bolt thrower.
Yeah.
And he swings himself so that he then has the overrun into the other one.
Oh, Jesus.
Unbelievable.
How is that rules wise possible? Like I like the circular base rules are always finicky.
Yeah, so essentially he kind of gets that free wheel when he connects. It was a bit, honestly, I think it was kind of on the borderline, but it's all about the positioning of where the model is, right? So he essentially, what he was able to do was he was able to swing past my Grey Watchers and then hit the bolt thrower and then wheel to connect, essentially, like with the unit. It was, anyways, it worked out so that he could do that. Yeah. I want to. I could be misremembering. It's possible the auxiliaries killed that bolt thrower. That's possible. But yeah, I feel like I remember.
That makes more sense.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah. Anyway, so that's possible. But either way, he gets the charge into that bolt thrower. So, here we are. It's turn 2, and I lost all my bolt throwers. Dumb deployment part. I can't. Admittedly, not killing that guy is bad luck, but I can't blame it entirely on that.
Yeah.
So anyways, I guess he got, if that's the case, he gets stuck on that bolt thrower, but he's just one guy, so that kind of makes sense. He's generally advanced overall, right? He has, let me take a look here. So he started to get a little bit more aggressive over on my right-hand side. He's brought both the Manticores up into charge range of my blocks, and now you can see my reaction. In order to shoot at that bolt thrower, he did have to expose his auxiliaries to a charge from my Prince. And my thinking here is that's a scoring unit, 1. 2, the Prince doesn't care about Thunderpacks or Gorgons at all because he multi-wounds to all of them, right?
Yeah.
And so my thinking was, if I get him up there and just kind of block up the lines, right, that could be a time bomb for him because he could flee basically at any time from that. And then I could get a free pivot and charge. So I thought this was kind of I could have kept pulling back with the Huntsman, but ultimately I was already backed into the corner, and I felt like this could get me a scoring unit and potentially get some upside. So I'm not sure if that was the right decision, but it was the decision that I made.
It's just a lot of bodies to get through for a character.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. And then the other thing that I did was I left my one of my Sea Guard units up in the ruins, and essentially what I was trying to do here was trap him a little bit. I've positioned my Nova Griff so that he's got, if he charges in with his Manticores, I can do a flank charge, right? If he charges in and sticks on the Sea Guard, which he likely does, then I can get a flank charge with the Nova Griff, essentially. And the Nova Griff is very good against both those guys because he's got a 2-up, 5-up, and a 2-up, 4-up fortitude. So the lethal and the divine, I'm basically good against either one of those guys.
Yeah.
And then also he's charging into the ruins with both of them, right? And they are cav, I believe, and so they're failing on 1s and 2s. So my thinking was, see if he gets greedy and goes into the Sea Guard, and if I can stick, the one turn, then I can pick up probably both of those characters with the Nova Griff, which is a huge point sink because that's his general and his BSB, and they're each about 400 or 500 points, right? And actually, start to be in a good position there. So then we fast forward and I'll tell you what happened before you move into the next picture. I believe. So hold on one second. Let me give you go back. So he does charge that Sea Guard unit.
Okay.
I do a wound to one of his characters. I think the BSB with the stand and shoe. Which
okay.
Is
there you go.
He fails no DT. He gets no DT wounds, which was a shame. I'm steadfast on a 9, no reroll, admittedly, on a 9, and I fail it, which is a real bummer. But then to add insult to injury, because I've got my archer unit behind them, right? So I had this backup plan, which was that if I did fail, he'd overrun into my archers, and I would still have the flank charge, right? So backup plan is there. And then I fail a minimize 10 panic check with the mage in there, and they run off the board. So it's a pretty, now the first one, failing a 9, no reroll, fair enough. I mean, that happens.
That happens.
The minimize 10 hurt pretty bad, because then what happens is one of his Manticores is able to, or one or both of his Manticores is able to overrun out of my line of sight with the Nova Griff. So essentially I've lost 2 scoring units, my magic phase, and I don't get anything out of it. And to add insult to injury, he doesn't take any wounds from his second round of DTs, right? So at this point he's at 8 DTs on 1s and 2s and doesn't take a single wound. So things are looking a little rough for our intrepid army here, trying to do what they can against this. So now let's go ahead. What do I do to try to recover?
Okay, so it looks like the general overruns into the other Sea Guard unit.
Correct. Yeah.
And then the BSB just goes straight forward. Okay. Continue.
Right. And so from a positioning perspective, where the general was able to overrun the other Sea Guard unit was in my front, right? So I was not able to charge him with the Nova Grip. You can see that although I do a decent amount of damage, he's still sticking around with that auxiliary unit. You can see that his dragon ultimately managed to finish off the Flame Phoenix on the left, but I do push through 1 or 2 wounds, which was happy news. His bloody Shadow Rider champion finished off my Bulldog and is still around. You can see I've done a little bit of work on those Gorgons, so they're down to maybe 5 wounds left there. I've run my Lancers away because at this point they're just giving up points if I keep them in the back. And I charge with my Nova Griff and my Flame Phoenix into the Thunder Pack there. There was a small chance, if I didn't do too many wounds to that Thunder Pack, that I would be able to overrun with the Novogryph into the Gorgons, which would have been great. But higher likelihood was that I do an absolute metric ton of wounds to them, which I did, and just go right through them like a hot knife through butter, and I get no overrun, which is a shame. But there was no way to optimize it. So I charge in, I wipe out that Thunder Pack unit. I overrun. I think I overrun with the Flame Phoenix to get out of the Gorgon's line of sight, and I keep the Novogryph where he is, kind of pointing flexibly. And the good news is that Thunder Pack unit, I think I was able to adjust the Huntsman Pritz so that he is chaffing that Thunder Pack unit in the center currently. So that was a little bit of luck. And so here I am, right? I've lost a lot of points.
Yeah.
Most of my units. The other scoring unit is in combat, and I will lose it eventually. And I'm surrounded, right? So my opponent at this point, I can't remember if he talked to his coach or not, but essentially my opponent kind of hemmed and hawed about this moment in the game for a little bit. We were moving pretty quickly, right? This is his top of 3, I think.
Yeah.
And he decides that he's going to go for a big win, right? I think he does the math and he sees that like the princes are a lot of points, obviously, and if he doesn't get them, it's not a big win. So he goes all in. His general manages to break my. I think I fill another 9. It doesn't really matter. His general manages to break that Seaguard unit, turns around and charges my Novogryph in the ass.
Ooh.
Okay. His Thunder Pack goes into my Huntsman Prince right there. His Gorgons also go into my Huntsman Prince.
Okay.
Sandwiches the Huntsman Prince. He turns around the BSB Manticore and kind of brings him out to threaten various things. And then, as some people are want to say, everything changes.
Oh,
so he in this turn, my Huntsman Prince goes 100% conversion, wipes out the Thunder Pack unit and the Gorgons.
Wow.
Right, one turn, completely wipes them out, and I think he's still stuck around with that auxiliary unit for one more turn, but obviously a huge deal. And then the second.
And
okay,
then
go actually, yeah. So and then his general charging the Novogryph in the ass. I one-shot him.
Jesus. Okay.
And I think he took a DT coming out of the ruins into the general. I recall, but this one was this is the Death Cheater one. Yeah, this is the Death Cheater one. And what ended up doing it was he's charging me in the butt, so I can't trigger the Nova Lance, right? But I do still have lethal, and I got 2 lethals with the Prince, 2 wounds, and the Griffin did the last wound, killed him.
Wow.
Before the Neckhor could go. So, I mean, a huge swing in the game, obviously. And I think, let me think about this. Yeah, so now you can go ahead into the
Yes,
next.
this is bottom of 4. All these models are missing.
Yeah, so all those models are missing, and I think, I may have misremembered this. Yeah, that's right. That's what happened. So when he came in with the Thunder Pack and the Gorgons, I killed the Gorgons, and I did most of the wounds to the Thunder Pack, and then in the following turn, right, in my turn, he broke, and I pursued the Thunder Pack towards his dragon, and I made the 11 overrun that I needed to hit the dragon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
So this was, I mean, admittedly, I had a lot of rough luck in the midst there. Then it completely swung around, right? So huge point swings here, and hitting that dragon was obviously a huge deal because he can just run away if he, at that point. But getting him, and then my opponent found himself in a little bit of a pickle here, right? And this is where the bloody Shadow Rider champion who's sitting up on that hill ends up screwing me over.
Damn you!
Exactly. So here I am. I'm charging his dragon. He's got two champions that could. He's got one champion that can charge me in the flank with that auxiliary unit, right? So he can charge me and tie me up. But we did the math, and I still win that combat, even because of the overkill, right? So charge, flank, big flank. I still win that combat because of the charge and the 4 wounds, and that could have broken the dragon anyways, right? So he was like hemming and hawing about it. He's like, I shouldn't do that because then I give you another flag point, right? I could potentially claw my way back to the scenario here. But then he remembers, there's this moment, you can see the light bulb go off in his head. He's like, oh, got my Shadow Rider champion. Is he an arc? Yes, he is. Charges the bloody Shadow Rider champion in. That fucking guy. Anyway, so he challenges out the huntsman. It basically just buys the dragon another turn, right? So I kill that Shadow Rider champion. The dragon sticks. The dragon does stick, which was shaky, right? But he does stick. In the following 1 or 2 combats, the huntsman kills the dragon.
Okay.
He has to pass a couple of kind of shaky panic checks there because his units are nearby, and then I get a little bit unlucky because you see those 2 little auxiliary guys over there behind my Flame Phoenix, kind of under the ruler. You can see the kind of I wake those guys, right, and I don't manage to kill them. I think there's one of them left at the end of the game, which is a real shame. But then we end up with another moment where he considers charging his BSB into my Nova Griff again. And I'll be honest with you, I think I had used my Nova Flare at this point. And I'll be honest with you, I like between us now afterwards, I was a little bit nervous about that because what's the likelihood managed to do that again, right? And I think I was wearing a wound or 2 at this point, so there's a chance that he could kill me. But based on how things had gone in that couple of turns, my opponent ultimately, after thinking about it, was like, "Nah,
I can't risk it again."
Can't risk it. And so I think this might be the last picture of the game, right?
This is end of. There's a last pick that says end of game.
Yeah, okay, so now you can see those 2 auxiliaries survived, my Lancers survived. I kind of pulled the Nova Griff and the Flame Phoenix back out. I've got my Huntsman Prince doing the Lord's work over there, just murdering this guy's entire army by himself. And he runs his BSB away. You can see his nose kind of up on the hill on the left-hand side over there. And that's where the game ends. So he didn't lose any of his scoring units. His Lancers, his Dreadknights are somewhere on the left, right? Correct. Yeah, he didn't lose any of his scoring units. But I think that if you rewind 3 or 4 pictures and look at things at that moment, right? One more. If you look at things at that moment, he has lost, 2 Shadow Rider units and most of another one, right? And that's it. And I've lost almost all of my scores, my Grey Watchers, my Reaver Chariots, one of my Flame Phoenixes, right? I've lost a third of my army at this point, and I've lost the scenario, right? So this is right now, this is like a 15-16 win for him. And he decided to go for it. And if you look at this picture, I got both 2 Thunder Packs, the General, almost all the auxiliaries, the Gorgons, right? ultimately the dragon as well, right? So just like this metric ton of points, and so it ended up being a
Ended up with all that. You still losing secondary. Gives
Yeah.
you a 9. Gives you a 9. You beat him on points by a fair amount.
by a lot. Yeah. So it was, admittedly, I think good outcome given where I was at and some of the mistakes that I made, and also the overall rating for this match, anyways. But I do think it's a good. Essentially, like, the princes killed the world in this game. The two princes.
Highborn Elf princes are everything almost. They're just so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting game.
Looking back, do you really just look at your deployment, kind of kicking yourself?
The truth of the matter is that I think that there's no way for me to win this objective. And I think that if I manage to do well and kind of zone him, and I deploy better, I still think it's like a 5 to 7 with him winning the first turn.
Okay.
I think I had set myself up for much worse because of where the bolt throwers were and that dumb move with the Flame Phoenix in turn 1. But we saw how it ended up. So I think that I should have, if you're going to corner right. So I should, like, the Reavers and the Flame Phoenix over on the left, I don't think is a terrible decision, because I do think that you need something to slow his advance down. But the bolt throwers all being at least a foot over the left or more, right? And all of that, I think is kind of a no-brainer, and it was just dumb of me to position them there. They basically had no impact in the game, essentially, which I needed them to do a lot, and they didn't. So.
Well, okay, that ends up a win for you guys. How did the rest of the team do? Actually, let me bring up a new recruit here.
So I think we ended up doing really well here. We didn't quite cap them. Obviously, we got very, very close. There were a couple of surprises. I think one that was a big surprise, big swing, was Ryan getting a 12 against David. I think he had that as an orange. So that was a big swing. Caps delivered on his green. Obviously, kind of came in roughly where I was supposed to. Neil with the big win over Lizard, so he converted one of his green into a big outcome. I think that in the OgreCon mirror, Ben managed to hang on to some decent points. I don't think he saw that as a very good match, and Ratman was able to get through the dwarves pretty successfully. So overall, a 99, good way to finish the tournament. We ended up with 3. We'll talk about the overall performance in a future video, but we ended up with 3 very, very solid top tier wins, and a couple of losses, caps, and a drawish against Sweden. So we'll talk a little bit more about the overall outcome, but it was a real pleasure. It was great, kind of fun, swingy game where the dice had a big impact to finish the tournament up with. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Sweet, that's awesome. ETC, it's our mainstay. It's our biggest event of the year. It's really awesome to see that you went and had all these great games. Love to follow Team USA when this happens. It's really fun to watch from a spectator end, which is awesome. So yeah, look forward to a review of the entire ETC from Vespacian, as well as a year in review all of your games, or just ETC.
I'm gonna try to do something that reviews all my stats over the course of the year, a little bit about my performance, and kind of some looking back and looking forward stuff. So yeah, hopefully we can get that in the next couple weeks.
And then also look forward to my 5 games in Canada. I will be running the Saurian Ancients. Go Saurian Ancients! Everyone's dogging on them, but come on, we can do it. It's a very unique list, but we'll get to that. So thank you everyone much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Good luck this weekend. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.